I'll call this meeting of the Medical Marijuana Facility Licensing Act Ad Hoc Committee to order. The first item of business listed here on the agenda is communications. For the committee, I would note in our agenda packet we received communications, and in addition to that, on the dais we have communications from a number of either residents or interested people who provided their commentary. So we'll can take this information into consideration as we further refine any recommendations, if there's any further matters to consider with this following this meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to Jacob Kane, the city planner, for an overview of the committee charge and the draft recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So briefly, just for everyone's benefit who's here tonight, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight to share your thoughts on this topic. This ad hoc committee was formed on April 10th of this year. Members of the committee were appointed by the city's mayor, and this committee is normally made up of 7 voting members and 3 non-voting members. We do have 2 voting members and 1 non-voting member who are absent this evening. The committee members, we have 2 city commissioners, Mr. Madeye, who's chairing our committee, and Commissioner Lori Gillis. We have 2 planning commissioners, Leslie Honig and William Joseph, 3 city residents, Angel Foster, James Kreidler, and Brandon McQueen. And then staff, the non-voting members would include Nicholas Curcio, our city attorney, myself, Jacob Kane, the city planner, and Paul Laurie, our director of public safety and police chief. The committee was charged by the city commission with researching the state's recently passed Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act and providing recommendations to the city commission on parameters and elements for a draft ordinance that would opt in to 1 or more of the 5 facilities that are permitted under the act, with the reasons why and potential implications. In addition, the committee was charged with researching the law, what other Michigan communities have done or plan to do, getting input from other cities and other states that have legalized medical marijuana to learn from their experience, and then finally obtain input from a variety of stakeholder groups. This is a list of stakeholders that was identified specifically by the City Commission. In addition, this group reached out to additional stakeholders, including folks who had indicated interest in participating in the committee prior to its formation. The committee was additionally charged with holding a town hall meeting to obtain input from residents. That's what we're doing here tonight. And then finally, to provide that input to the City Commission. The City Commission would then provide direction to our city attorney to prepare a draft ordinance or ordinances for their consideration later this fall. So tonight is our 4th meeting of the committee. We've had 3 prior meetings where we've been discussing some of those other items related to the charge. At our 3rd meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, we prepared the draft recommendation that we shared with the public. If you came in and you didn't notice, on the podium in the rear, there are copies of that draft recommendation if you'd like one, so that you can follow along. After tonight's town hall, we will have 1 and possibly 2 more committee meetings, one being this Wednesday, the 21st, and the final being on July 12th. After we provide the direction to the City Commission that the committee is recommending, the City Commission will in turn provide direction to the City Attorney on those ordinances, and we would expect the ordinances will be prepared and delivered to the City Commission sometime this fall, probably in September. So with that, what you have tonight, what we are presenting tonight, is a draft recommendation from this committee. The committee doesn't have any legislative authority, so nothing is being adopted tonight or will be adopted by this committee ultimately. This committee will just be making a recommendation that will be transmitted to the City Commission for their consideration. The committee is currently recommending that the city permit all 5 facility types that are authorized under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. Those 5 facility types are provisioning centers, processors, safety compliance facilities, secure transporters, and growers. For all 5 facility types, the committee is recommending that they be regulated as special uses under our zoning ordinance. This means that they would be subject to a public hearing process where the members of the public could weigh in on the proposed location of the facility, and the Planning Commission would be able to provide conditions of approval prior to approving a special use permit for the particular facility type. The committee is not recommending any limit on the number of facilities. The state act would allow the city on opting in to limit the number of facilities for each type of facility so that there would be a maximum number within the community. At this point, the committee is not recommending that the city do that. And finally, the committee is recommending that for all facility types, the city attorney look at language that would provide some preference to locally owned facilities under the licensing process. In terms of the specific recommendations with the 5 facility types for provisioning centers, these are also more commonly called dispensaries. This would be the facility where individuals, cardholders, would go to these facilities to pick up a prescription for medical marijuana, so essentially like a medical marijuana pharmacy. The committee is proposing that these facilities be allowed in both commercial and industrial zoning districts subject to a special use permit. And in addition, in terms of special requirements for these facilities, they're recommending that the location of provisioning centers be limited when they're in proximity to K through 12 schools. At this point, we haven't made a specific recommendation about what that limit would be, just that there be some sort of location limit within distance of K through 12 schools. In terms of processors, this would be a facility that would basically take the raw marijuana that's grown by a grower and turn it into products that would be purchased by the medical marijuana card holder. The committee is recommending that these uses be allowed in an industrial zoning district subject to a special use permit. At this point, the committee is not recommending any additional special use criteria or regulation for that use. Safety compliance facilities are basically a testing facility. This is a place where medical marijuana would be transported for testing to ensure the quality and purity of the product that's ultimately delivered to the patient recipient. The committee is recommending that these safety compliance facilities be allowed in industrial zoning districts subject to a special use permit. And again, the committee is not recommending at this point any specific criteria related to these facilities in that process. Secure transporters would be the company or companies that would transport the marijuana from a grower to a tester, to a secure testing facility, to the processor, and ultimately to the provisioning center. The committee is recommending those also be allowed in industrial zoning districts subject to a special use permit, and again, no use-specific criteria associated with that. And then finally, the 5th facility type growers, the committee is recommending those be allowed in industrial zoning districts subject to a special use permit. For these uses, the committee is recommending that that use have a special use criteria that requires grow operations to occur within an enclosed building, and also that there be regulations regarding odor control for these facilities. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you, and you can open the public input.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. The next item of business is public input. First, I'd like to offer my thanks to everyone who is here today to either participate or observe. If anyone who would like to come forward and address the committee, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address. I think we also have a sheet to record your name and address. And you'll also have 5 minutes to speak. I would advise everyone that this is an opportunity to inform the committee about any general concerns that you have about any medical marijuana facility in general to be permitted within the city limits, or alternatively, if you have specific concerns about a specific facility or with regard to a specific type of limit that you would like to see or not like to see, this is your chance to provide that input as well. Further, I'd also mention that this is not a time for general debate between members of the public, that this is just a sequential, orderly time to provide your comments within the 5-minute comment period. And if there's any questions that are asked by the members of the public, it's very likely that, given the constraints that we're working under, that, in the interest of providing you an opportunity to comment, an answer likely would not be able to be provided at this time in the meeting unless there's the chance that an answer could be very quickly provided. So, the interest is that we have here is to provide everyone an opportunity for their input without necessarily interrupting, their comments. So with that, once again, if anyone would like to offer their comments to the committee, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then you will have your 5 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name is Jim Marino. I'm currently at 316 South Arnold. This has been a long time coming. I'm happy that the city is moving in this direction. Some places they have
The mic.
Some places they have rejected. And I know that when there first was dispensaries, they wanted to pay sales tax, but the Attorney General didn't want them to. So I'm glad that there's going to be taxes involved. I'm glad there's going to be more jobs created. I'm glad that people will be able to get their medicine. I have been my partner has been a patient, and I have been a provider. I had my card and all that stuff. It's crazy. Some places you can go to medical dispensaries, and some places you can't. But what I think is interesting is how the people that drafted this legislation, they all quit and started working for the medical marijuana lobbyists. So they made the law. Now they're going to benefit from the law. And I also want to point out that it's the law. I've read it. I've been having presentations as a county commissioner for it. And it's kind of strange that you have to have secure transfer, and I can see the testing and all that, but it's like, do you think somebody's going to rush out there in a car and take the product out of their car by force? I don't think so, but it does provide jobs. So I'm glad this is happening. It can really be a economic development provider for the city, and the reason I brought up that incident about all the staff members in the House and Senate moving over to the lobbyist side is because it's quite obvious to me this is not about medical marijuana patients. This is about money-making schemes, because I can tell by the concerns that these laws address that they're not really caring about. And for one thing, why would a medicine be taxed, No other medicine is taxed. But I just wanted to say that I'm a kind of guy who compromises, and, I'm for this, although I can see a lot of glaring signals that things are not about what they appear to be. So thank you. I appreciate your...
Anyone else that would like to come forward, please come up to the podium. And I would also like to, mention to anyone, I guess in the interest of the time that we're working with, if anyone would like to, please feel free to, form a line at the podium, and because that way we won't have to, you can compress the time in between speakers.
Evening. My name is Jamie Webb. I represent Danasis Consulting and Development at 169 West Clarkston Road. Just a couple of concerns and comments on the draft legislation. Residential restrictions. If they're too restrictive, then provisioning centers would be limited within your commercial zoning district, where you have provisioning centers that are already slated to establish themselves. We'd urge you not to forget about the foot traffic and the commerce that these types of facilities can generate. As far as the drug-free school zone goes, we know that you guys haven't set up an actual radius yet, and we would urge you to go with the federal radius, which is 1,000 feet. And as far as the preference, the resident carve-out, The way we understand it is this would have to be included in your city's charter to allow for a carve-out. And the state actually preempts who's getting a license by going through an extremely thorough vetting process. Not to mention, too, by using this preferential system, you guys are actually leaving the city open to possible litigation, just something to consider. And that's all we have to say on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to the committee? This is going to be a short meeting if we don't have any more speakers.
I'm sorry I walked in late. I couldn't find my car keys. I'm Pat McGann-Zients. I live right in town. I'm a disabled, retired special ed teacher / group home director through listening ear. I taught in Clare, Gladwin counties in the 80s through the Substance Abuse Board and Clare Hospital as a substance abuse prevention educator. I loved that job. It was very low paid, but I would go into schools, and contrary to the just say no, it was teaching kids life skills, and then at the end, doing age-appropriate, specific drugs. Poison was the first one for kindergarten. Taking medicine from the right people, your parents or a designated babysitter. Then cigarettes were hit in all different ways. Mostly it was, ugh, they're so dirty. And never flush your parent's cigarette down the toilet, because what's going to happen? Anyways, beyond that, I just 12 years ago did a premature retirement because I hate what's happening in public school. I feel that the standardized tests don't do justice. I was working with behavior disorder kids, and I felt the label of bipolar and giving kids, many parents were very poor, very mixed up, and they would give their kids adult medications. Anyways, I worked with adult mentally ill as they came out of psychiatric hospitals and trying to help them return to the community. So I've experienced a rich life, but I came to Michigan being a good wife, ended up divorced, 2 daughters on joint custody, and I always thought I was going to be able to go back to the East Coast to be with my big family of origin, 6 sisters and 1 brother. I'm here today as a very lonely, depressed person. I try to recreate what I always try to do as a teacher of my special needs, and I don't like to categorize people under labels unless it gives a service. But I believe we all have multiple intelligences. I really don't like pain medication, but I have a range of diagnoses that start with, as a young person, at a young age, I had scoliosis. I had some accidents, sledding accidents, blah, 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 blah. Here I am at age 67. I've got shingles going on. I have chronic spine disease. I have neuropathy from my hips down, my shoulders. I don't like to take pain medication because it makes me kind of boogaloo. And I'm also going through some memory losses, and it makes me sad. But here I am.
Oh, ma'am,
And,
you have about a minute left.
okay, I just, within the past month, got a marijuana medicinal card. But I live in this town, and there are no dispensaries. I was really hesitant to come up here because I thought, oh no, is this going to mean I can't work with children? I have volunteered over at the museum. But anyways, I'm here. I was going to wear a disguise of a Wonder Woman costume, but we need help. I need my respect. I need to be able to just have whatever I need for a low dose. I'm a gardener. My family comes from farmers. So I'd love to be able to grow my own little plant. I don't know. I hope you,
Ma'am, your 5 minutes are up.
I'm going to smile at each and every one of you, because I'm not going to be trying to sell to kids for sure, that's for sure. When they see me, you know, they say, Miss McGann, Miss McGann. I talk them to make good choices, and let's have the people that need and want. So I don't know you individually. I only saw the newspaper ad, and
Thank you, ma'am.
I said, let's check it out, and I'm trying to learn. So thank you. Namaste.
Anyone else who would like to address the committee?
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello, my name is Dion Fallman. I work in the area at Hometown Realty. I have addressed this council before, or committee before, and at this opportunity get to address the public. I do understand that there is a medicinal purpose and need, apparently, for each individual person. But what I am thinking about is the community as a whole making drugs norm as the status quo in this community for children to see on a daily basis, for other people to consider that this is a norm behavior. And it's no disrespect to anybody. I know that when you are in pain, you need something. So it's absolutely no disrespect to the people who are in pain. However, I am just very concerned about, how do I put it? It's very hard to describe to you what I have seen and to look in the faces, and I've talked to people over the last 3 weeks, people who said they voted and they thought it was going to be dispensed by Walgreens. Not too clear in how this was presented to those folks. People who are concerned about it being near schools. 1,000 feet is not enough for a drug dealer. I can personally tell you. It gets into the schools. They have kids run it. There are people, I've seen them try to take a dead body out of a car. And what was more shocking than that was the young lady that passed in front of me, and it looked as if she had her skin painted on her skeleton. A human being that actually looked like she should have been on World Vision TV, standing in front of me, looking at somebody else being pulled out of a car. And it was quite obvious that she was on drugs. I understand that marijuana is not the more whatever it is, but it is an entry drug, despite of what you've been told. It is. It is. And I was very popular in the politics and everything else, as the gentleman said. The people who have made the law are now working for the drug industry. They are not in the streets. And trust me, you don't want this community to be like that. And I'm making one last plea. I have the option, since I'm not from here, I get to go anywhere, I can move anywhere. Some of these people have been lifelong residents. I've invested in this community. I have put people in homes in this community. I have seen them more concerned about their backyard, where their kids are going to play, the type of rooms, the plugs that they have in the walls. And to see a government operation, whether it's for money or otherwise, operate contrary to what holistically you should be doing. It's just amazing and just amazing and stunning. And no pun intended, but I have yet to see people literally plant weeds in their front yard and expect it not to grow over into their neighbor's yard or blow over somewhere else. So it seems like this is already in place. I really hope that what happens doesn't come to pass. And I'm not saying it'll happen immediately, but it takes time. It might not take time. I know you guys talk about moving things securely. Other people who will see the profit will have other plans. And then what do you have in place? You're going to have more cops. What about the foster kids that you're going to now? I know people now I get calls having to deal with their children whose parents are now actually beholden to drugs. So this is on your heads and in your hands. So again.
Oh, and you have about a minute left.
Thank you. Again, the pain that somebody feels physically is nothing in seeing families destroyed. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to address the commission, please come forward and state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Jeremy Wimpy, 208 East Maple. I just wanted to applaud this committee for considering opening up the city to various types of medical marijuana facilities. I think it's important to distinguish between recreational marijuana use and medical marijuana use. There are real needs for medical marijuana in some cases where it's prescribed, and being able to appropriately and professionally and through regulation and legislation address those needs and develop a system to accommodate those needs is important to our city members as well as our county residents.
Would you please sign in before? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come forward, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yeah, I knew if I wait long enough.
Good evening. My name is Todd Levitt. I'm an attorney in town, and 600 East Broadway. I want to compliment the committee. I think it's great what you've drafted here. The issue is, and I would ask the committee to consider this, is speaking to all the landlords in the city of Mount Pleasant. As an attorney, I speak to landlords all the time throughout the state, representing individuals seeking to obtain a facilities licensing act. I've actually spoken to landlords in this town. I would like to see a group of landlords from this town, who a lot of the landlords own the majority of the property, and to have discussions with these landlords, because if you allow unlimited amount of provisioning centers, that's great, but because a lot of these landlords already have tenants in some of these strip malls, there may be leases that are restrictive and there's conditions on them, and somebody in the audience who wants to apply for a provisioning center, there's not going to be anywhere in town to have an opportunity for a lease. So either if you're already a business owner and you have space within the city, it's going to be very difficult, I see, for other individuals to gain access to these licenses. And again, just from my experience, a number of the landlords own majority of the property, as I see it, along Mission and other places. So I'd like an opportunity on behalf of the citizens in the city here, where I live and practice law, to talk to these landlords as a group and let them get input from the citizens. Because there's a lot of opportunity for these landlords to profit, to put local people to work. But if these landlords don't, give everyone the opportunity, then this is all for nothing, and people can't get their medicine, and family and people won't have an opportunity to go into business. So that's my issue, is with the landlords. Is that your issue? No, but you're a committee and you're putting this together on behalf of the people. So I'm asking you, Leslie, I know Leslie, Brandon, Chief, if you can gather up the landlords. I'm not going to say them by name. We all know who they are. I'd like to say them by name, but I'm not going to. But I'd like an opportunity to speak to those landlords. Loosen up. Allow these people an opportunity. So that's all I have to say, and thank you, and good job.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address the committee, please come forward.
Hi there. My name is Ashley Nola. I live in the village at Bluegrass, so I just recently moved to Mount Pleasant. But I am the president of the Student Advocates for the Medical and Responsible Use of Cannabis. I've been events coordinator and vice president the past 2 years, and recently was voted president. But I'm just here to thank you guys for putting this board together and working towards a safer Mount Pleasant with marijuana. Personally, I didn't find marijuana until I was 19, but I have suffered from depression since I was 13. I had 2 serious concussions in high school from snowboarding injuries, and I also have a lot of pain from those things. So I didn't find marijuana until I was in college, but since finding it, it has completely opened my eyes to like how vast this concept is and how much history is involved with it. Down to money, down to people going into jail unnecessarily, falling into the system of just, it's redundant. I mean, it's crazy how you can be caught with a possession and be in your system the entire life. So, my excitement is that this is here and it's, it's now. Like, people can actually work in this industry. They can build a life on it versus building their life, on pain medications and things like that. So, I just want to thank you for being here and everything. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come forward, please come to the podium and state your name and address, please. I might have to do the going once, going twice, but once again, thank you.
Hello, my name is Kara Kuntz, and I live at 315 West Locust, and I would just like to touch on the aspect of community education. I feel like it's something that's very lacking with marijuana, and it's kind of unfortunate that people have to go out and try it for themselves to see what it's like, because they're not told the honest truth about what cannabis is and what it can do for people. And on the topic of the landlords and just in general making the community aware of what is possible, the Michigan Senate Fiscal Committee stated that $711 million could be made if it was a fully legal market. So for me, it's like, do we want to take that money and have a piece of it and put some of it back into community education so that our kids know why marijuana signs are around, or do we want to, have patients traveling to Lansing or, traveling further to get their drugs when we could provide them that place here and provide the education with the revenue stream that it brings in? So I know the money aspect is, we don't want to make patients feel like it is something just about money, but when you can turn that around like Colorado has, and they have $200 million in revenue going, back into their education and public transportation and things like that. So I think it's very important, and I thank you guys for, your recommendations, and I maybe would urge that, if possible, something about the community education could be added to using part of the revenue stream for that. So, thank you. I'll sign in.
Nick, what about just like a raise of hands for support or not support?
One moment. I'm sorry, Brandon. I didn't mean to interrupt anything, but I was interested in just continuing on with the public comments. So if we could, so thank you. Once again, if there's anyone who would like to speak to the committee, please come forward. And I would encourage anyone, if there's any more speakers after the next one, to please, feel free to, make a line behind the podium. So. Anyone that would like to address the committee, please come forward and state your name and address, please. I'm sorry, ma'am. We're trying to, give an opportunity to the public once each time. So, but I apologize, ma'am. But that's the ordinary course that we're working with. So. And I would like to give everyone an opportunity to speak first. So, anyone else would like to speak to the committee? So, well, seeing none, I will move on to the next agenda item. Then, the next agenda item is review of next steps. So, Mr. Kane, do you have any input or direction for this one?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would say the intention tonight was just to listen to the community who came out to speak to the committee. So I'd encourage you to think about what you heard tonight and come back Wednesday evening at 7 o'clock, and we'll be taking a fresh look at the draft recommendation, considering what, if any, amendments, additions, or deletions this committee wants to make before finalizing that recommendation and sending it on to the City Commission. So, and for those members of the public who couldn't speak tonight or who have further thoughts on this issue after tonight, the meeting on Wednesday would be another opportunity for public input if someone was interested in doing that.
Any questions from the committee before we adjourn? Okay. Seeing none, we'll be adjourned until the next meeting, which is Wednesday, the 21st at 7 p.m. right here in the City Commission chambers then. Thank you, everyone, for being here.